They laughed at the disheveled father the moment he stepped into the courtroom, his worn-out work boots leaving muddy prints on the polished marble floor. The expensive suits and designer dresses seemed to part like the Red Sea as he walked down the center aisle, his calloused hands clutching a small wooden box that looked as out of place as he did. Judge Harrison's eyebrows rose in contempt, and the court clerk didn't even try to hide her smirk when the man stated his name, Thomas Wright, in a voice that cracked from obvious nervousness. "Mr. Wright, this is a custody hearing, not a construction site," the judge remarked, triggering a wave of hushed laughter throughout the room. Thomas stood there, shoulders hunched, his threadbare jacket too thin for the overly air-conditioned room, his weathered face flushing red as the custody lawyer for his late wife's wealthy parents looked him up and down with obvious disdain. Would you have stood up for him or joined the crowd looking away? Tell us in the comments. But no one in that cold, sterile courtroom was ready for what was about to unfold next. No one could have predicted how a simple bicycle repair would completely upend the lives of everyone present that day. Thomas shifted uncomfortably as Judge Harrison shuffled through his papers. "So, Mr. Wright, you believe you should retain full custody of your daughter despite your limited financial resources. Mrs. and Mr. Blackwood here can provide little Emma with every opportunity you simply cannot afford." Thomas opened his mouth to speak, but was cut off by the Blackwoods' attorney, a slick-haired man with a watch that probably cost more than Thomas's entire house. "Your Honor, my clients can offer the child private education, summer programs in Europe, and a stable household with proper guidance. Meanwhile, Mr. Wright here works 3 jobs and can barely afford childcare." The whispers grew louder. How selfish to keep that poor child in poverty when she could have everything! Thomas's hands trembled as he clutched the wooden box tighter. His world was crumbling around him, and for a moment, it seemed like he might break down completely. And if stories of fathers who refuse to give up despite impossible odds move your heart, subscribe now. More powerful stories every week about ordinary people facing extraordinary challenges. The judge peered over his glasses. "Mr. Wright, what's in the box you're holding so tightly?" Thomas looked down at his hands as if surprised to find himself still clutching it. Just some photographs, Your Honor, and a letter." "From whom?" the judge asked, his tone softening slightly. "From my wife, Sarah, before she—" Thomas couldn't finish the sentence, the pain of losing her just 8 months ago still fresh and raw. Sarah Wright had been the light of Thomas's world for 15 wonderful years. They'd met when they were both 19. She was studying literature at the community college, and he was working as an apprentice at the local bicycle shop, learning the trade that would eventually become the family business they built together. Their tiny repair shop, Wright's Wheels, had never made them rich, but it had made them happy. Sarah had been the one with the big dreams and the warm smile that could light up even the darkest days. Her sudden diagnosis had come like a thunderclap, aggressive cancer with a grim prognosis. Within 6 months, Thomas had watched helplessly as the love of his life withered away, leaving him alone with their 8-year-old daughter Emma and a mountain of medical bills. "My daughter is all I have left of Sarah," Thomas said quietly, but with surprising strength. "Emma helps me in the shop after school. She knows every tool, every part. It's our connection to her mother." The Blackwoods' attorney scoffed. "Your Honor, this is precisely our point. A child should be playing with friends and focusing on education, not working in a failing bicycle shop." Thomas winced at the word failing. It wasn't entirely untrue. After Sarah's illness and the medical expenses, the shop had struggled. He'd had to let go of their only employee and cut back on inventory. Some days they barely made enough to keep the lights on. But what no one in that courtroom understood was what happened 2 weeks ago, the incident that had set everything in motion and would soon change the trajectory of this hearing in ways no one could imagine. It had been a rainy Tuesday afternoon when Thomas first noticed the boy standing outside the shop window. He couldn't have been more than 10 years old, soaking wet, staring longingly at the bicycles inside. When Thomas invited him in to get dry, the boy reluctantly entered, dragging what looked like the remains of a bicycle behind him. "Can you fix it?" the boy had asked, his voice barely audible above the rain hammering on the roof. Thomas examined the rusted frame, the bent wheels, the missing chain. "This needs more than a fix, buddy. It needs a miracle." "I saved $18.43, the boy said, pulling a soggy wad of dollar bills and loose change from his pocket. "My mom says we can't afford a new one." Thomas recognized the look in the boy's eyes. Not just hope, but necessity. This wasn't about a toy. This was about transportation, independence, maybe even survival. "What's your name?" Thomas had asked. Michael Donovan." "Well, Michael Donovan, let's see what we can do." For the next 3 days, Thomas worked on that bicycle after hours. Emma helped, her small hands surprisingly deft at polishing the chrome parts they'd salvaged from the back room. Thomas replaced the frame with one from an unclaimed repair, added new tires from his dwindling inventory, and installed a proper chain, brakes, and gears. When Michael returned with his mother to check on the bicycle, his eyes had widened in disbelief. "That's not my bike," he'd whispered. "It is now," Thomas had replied, watching as the boy circled around it in awe. When Michael's mother, Lisa Donovan, a tired-looking woman with kind eyes, asked for the bill, Thomas had waved her off. $18.43 covers it. "But this is a completely refurbished bicycle," she'd protested. "It must be worth over $100. Thomas had just shrugged. "My daughter and I needed a project. Consider it community service." What Thomas didn't tell them was that he'd stayed up until 2 in the morning for 3 straight nights to finish it, or that he'd used parts he couldn't really afford to give away. He didn't mention that the electricity bill was overdue, or that he'd skipped lunch for the past week to save money. Back in the courtroom, Judge Harrison was growing impatient. "Mr. Wright, while your attachment to your daughter is commendable, we must consider what's best for the child. The Blackwoods can provide financial security that you simply cannot." The wealthy grandparents nodded in smug agreement, already envisioning their granddaughter living in their mansion, attending private school, becoming the refined young lady they believed Sarah would have wanted, conveniently forgetting that Sarah had chosen a very different life for herself. Thomas opened the wooden box with trembling fingers and pulled out a sealed envelope. "Your Honor, my wife left this letter with instructions to open it only if her parents ever tried to take Emma away from me." The Blackwoods attorney jumped to his feet. "Objection! This is a last-minute emotional manipulation tactic. Any alleged letter should have been submitted during discovery." The judge raised his hand. "I'll allow it. Mr. Wright, please approach the bench." As Thomas walked forward clutching Sarah's letter, a commotion erupted at the back of the courtroom. The heavy doors swung open, and a distinguished-looking man in an impeccable suit entered, followed by a woman Thomas recognized immediately as Lisa Donovan and her son Michael. Would you fight back against a system stacked against you, or surrender to those with more power and money? Let us know in the comments. The newcomer strode confidently down the aisle. "Your Honor, I apologize for the interruption. My name is James Montgomery, attorney at law. I'm here representing Mr. Thomas Wright." The Blackwoods attorney sputtered in indignation. "Your Honor, this is highly irregular. Mr. Wright has no legal representation on record." Montgomery smiled politely. "As of this morning, I am officially on record. I filed the necessary paperwork, which should be in the court system by now." The judge glanced at his computer screen and raised his eyebrows. "Indeed, it appears you have, Mr. Montgomery. May I ask what prompted this last-minute representation?" Montgomery placed his briefcase on the table and clicked it open. "Your Honor, I believe this case requires a closer look at what truly constitutes the best interest of the child. Financial resources are certainly a factor, but they are far from the only consideration." He pulled out a folder and handed copies to the judge and the opposing counsel. I'd like to submit these character witness statements from Emma Wright's teachers, neighbors, and community members who can attest to the exceptional parenting Mr. Wright provides despite his financial challenges. The courtroom buzzed with whispers as Montgomery continued. Additionally, I'd like to call an unexpected witness who can speak to Mr. Wright's character in a way that directly relates to his fitness as a parent. The judge nodded, curiosity evident in his expression. Proceed. Montgomery turned and gestured toward Lisa Donovan, who walked forward with Michael. The boy clutched a familiar wooden box, similar to the one Thomas held. Your Honor, this is Lisa Donovan and her son Michael. 2 weeks ago, Mr. Wright repaired Michael's bicycle free of charge, spending his own limited resources and time to help a child he'd never met before. Miss Donovan has something she would like to share with the court. Lisa stepped forward, her voice steady despite her obvious nervousness. Your Honor, what Mr. Wright did for my son might seem small to some, but to us, it was everything. Michael needs that bicycle to get to school because I work 2 jobs and can't drive him. Mr. Wright didn't just fix a bike, he changed our lives. She nodded to Michael, who opened his wooden box and pulled out a stack of papers. After Mr. Wright helped us, I did some research. I work as a paralegal, and I recognized something in him. The same thing I saw in my late husband, a good man doing his best against impossible odds. Montgomery took the papers from Michael and handed them to the judge. Your Honor, Miss Donovan took it upon herself to organize a community fund for Mr. Wright's bicycle shop. In just 10 days, they've raised enough money to cover his outstanding medical bills and revitalize his business. 53 local families have contributed, many of whom have benefited from Mr. Wright's generosity over the years. The judge flipped through the papers, his expression changing from skepticism to interest. This is quite remarkable, Mr. Montgomery. There's more, Your Honor, Montgomery continued. Mrs. Donovan also discovered something that directly contradicts the Blackwood's claims about Mr. Wright's financial instability. He handed another document to the judge. This is a trust fund established by Sarah Wright before her death. She used her life insurance policy to create a college fund for Emma. Mr. Wright has never touched this money, despite his financial struggles, because he was honoring his wife's wishes for their daughter's future. The Blackwoods shifted uncomfortably in their seats, clearly unaware of this information. Their attorney leaned over to whisper urgently in their ears. And finally, Your Honor, said Montgomery, his voice resonating throughout the now silent courtroom, I'd like to address the letter Mr. Wright was about to share with you. Thomas looked up in surprise. How did Montgomery know about Sarah's letter? Montgomery smiled gently at Thomas. Miss Donovan discovered that Sarah Wright filed a notarized statement with her will, expressing her explicit wishes regarding Emma's custody in the event of her death. That statement mirrors what I believe is in the letter Mr. Wright holds. The judge turned to Thomas. Mr. Wright, would you please read your wife's letter for the court? Thomas's hands trembled as he broke the seal on the envelope and unfolded the letter inside. His voice was barely audible as he began to read. My dearest Thomas, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone, and my parents are trying to take Emma away from you. They never approved of our life together, believing I married down and threw away my potential. They were wrong. You gave me the most beautiful life I could have imagined, one filled with love, honesty, and purpose. Thomas, you are the best father Emma could ever have. You teach her values no private school could ever instill: compassion, integrity, and the satisfaction of working with your hands to create something meaningful. Your bicycle shop might not make us millionaires, but it makes us rich in all the ways that matter. Tell the judge that my explicit wish is for Emma to remain with you in our home, continuing the life we built together. My parents have wealth, but you have wisdom. They can offer her things, but you offer her roots and wings. All my love for all eternity, Sarah. By the time Thomas finished reading, there wasn't a dry eye in the courtroom. Even Judge Harrison removed his glasses to wipe his eyes discreetly. The judge cleared his throat. In light of this new evidence and testimony, I'm prepared to make my ruling. He looked directly at the Blackwoods. While I appreciate your concern for your granddaughter's welfare, it is clear to this court that Mr. Wright provides Emma with something far more valuable than financial security. He provides her with love, stability, and important life lessons about generosity and perseverance. Judge Harrison turned to Thomas. Mr. Wright, this court awards you full custody of Emma Wright, with reasonable visitation rights for the grandparents should all parties agree to that arrangement. The relief that washed over Thomas's face was palpable. "Thank you, Your Honor," he whispered. As the court adjourned, Thomas turned to Montgomery and Lisa Donovan in bewilderment. "I don't understand. How did you know to come today, and why would you help me?" Montgomery smiled. "When Miss Donovan told me about what you did for her son, I knew you were someone worth fighting for. In my 30 years of practicing law, I've learned that the measure of a person isn't found in their bank account, but in their actions when no one is watching." Lisa touched Thomas's arm gently. "What you did for Michael taught him something no amount of money could buy, that there are still good people in this world who help others expecting nothing in return." Michael stepped forward, his eyes bright with admiration. "Mr. Wright, when I grow up, I want to be just like you." Outside the courthouse, as autumn leaves swirled around them in the crisp afternoon air, Thomas knelt down to Michael's level. "You know, my shop could use an apprentice on weekends. If your mom agrees, I could teach you everything I know about bicycles." Michael's face lit up with joy. "Really? Mom, can I?" Lisa nodded, smiling through her tears. "I think that would be perfect." As they walked down the courthouse steps together, Thomas realized something profound. In trying to fix a broken bicycle for a boy in need, he had inadvertently fixed his own broken life. The wooden box he still clutched contained not just Sarah's letter, but the blueprint for moving forward. Generosity, integrity, and the courage to keep pedaling even when the road gets steep. Never judge a person's wealth by what's in their wallet, but by what's in their heart. Family isn't just about blood, but about those who choose to stand beside you when the world seems determined to knock you down. If this story moved you, subscribe now for more powerful stories every week about ordinary people who prove that true character isn't measured by possessions but by actions. And click on the video on the screen to watch the next one, with a twist so powerful you'll never forget what happens when kindness comes full circle in the most unexpected way.